So I was married. I had 2 children. And in 2009, my husband passed away. It was very, very quick. In January, he had a cough. And in April, he had a cough. In June, they said, oh, we think it could be cancer. In July, they said it's stage 3. In August, they said it's stage 4. And in September, he was gone. And we had a really traditional marriage. My husband was a worship pastor and worked at a Christian radio station. And so he was the breadwinner. And I was at home homeschooling the kids. And so when he passed, there was no one to provide. And so the first thing that I knew was I've got to figure out how to be able to provide for my family. So I took a year to just process and grieve. And part of that grief was just always going before the Lord. What's next? How do we keep surviving? My kids were 10 and 13 at the time. And I think pretty quickly I came to the conclusion that I really still wanted to be a part of building God's kingdom. I had really had the gift when my husband was alive to be able to volunteer a significant amount of my time in the church, run children's ministry, help with women's ministry, be at lots of different things, help the church do all the things it needed to do, whether that was cleaning or organizing or setting up for a special service. And to not be able to be a part of that, I just couldn't imagine a life where I couldn't be a part of that. But I also knew there's no way I was going to be able to be a single mom, work a full-time job, and volunteer. I knew that couldn't happen. So pretty quickly I realized I was going to need to make working with God, working for God, make it my vocation, get paid for it. And so then I started seeking the Lord. I'm like, okay, well, what would that even look like? And part of that process was, well, God, where have I been effective? Like, where have you and me actually been able to make a difference in the kingdom, And one of the things I really was able to identify is I always had young people in my life. They just always gravitated to our family. They always were around. I always enjoyed them. They always seemed to enjoy me. And so after that, I was like, okay, I think I really want to do college. A friend of mine was working in Young Life. And so she said, well, why don't you work with our graduated seniors who are our leaders? And I said, okay, great, I'll do that. So I did that for a little while. But still knew I really wanted to work with college students. And a friend of mine was actually moving. And so I went to a goodbye lunch. And she said, well, what do you think you're going to do? What's next? And I said, I think I really want to work with college students, but I have no idea how to even make that happen. And she and I had gone to the same church, and that church had formerly been pastored by the director at Campus Ambassadors. And so my friend Laura knew her and said, oh, I know somebody who's in charge of Campus Ambassadors, so why don't I connect you guys? And I actually said, oh, well, I'm in seminary, so I'm in finals. Please don't do that right now. Give me a break. And then she emailed me within a week and said, I'm so sorry, but I just got their email and I wanted to respond. And so I'm connecting you guys. And our former director at CA actually reached out to me and said, hey, we have a ministry at Worcester State. Would you like to come and see what it's all about? And one of the students that I had been working with, I actually had moved her in as a freshman to Worcester State. So I reached out, called her and said, hey, I have to go to this thing. I don't want to go by myself. Will you go with me? She said, sure. I'll get a couple of my roommates. So I show up to a CA event with 3 students. And it was hilarious because later on, Val said to me, well, you passed your job interview. So that's what got me into Campus Ambassadors.